The stars turned crimson with blood and gore when humanity unleashed its ancient, genetically engineered warbeasts on the galaxy again. Commander Gerald Phillips of the Galactic Defense Force felt the council chambers shake as a 7-foot-tall insectoid Tholian named Tyro slid a hologram in front of his eyes, displaying a rogue warlord's armada of 500 warships. The bug-eyed alien clicked its pincers before speaking. "This warlord threatens to slaughter dozens of our member species. Our fleet of 2,000 is larger, but his tech is superior. We believe if humans can find their warbeasts from the ancient records, they could be used to quickly wipe Zorthax's fleet, saving billions of lives." Phillips crossed his arms before replying. "You're talking about beasts from legends thousands of years old. They may not even exist anymore." Tyro reached a spiny tendril towards the screen before loading new footage. "Zorthax attacked this world 1 cycle ago, killing every living thing on the surface to test a new weapon. 4 billion dead in minutes. We don't have the ships to reach him before he kills countless more." Phillips swallowed as the video looped on burning cities. "I'll do it. Give me everything you have on these warbeasts and any ship I need. If these monsters are out there, I'll find them and bring them to Zorthax. No one else is dying on my watch." Tyro clicked again, satisfied, as several file folders loaded into the commander's datapad. "These records are incomplete, but they document the last known locations of the Warbeast facilities. The ship GS-117 Voyager will have everything you need. The fate of the Andromeda sector rests on your shoulders now, Commander. Bring these ancient nightmares back to the front." Phillips felt a chill run down his spine as he thought about the prospect of commanding the terrible weapons from eons ago, weapons that nearly wiped out all sentient life once before. He would need to decide if awakening that genie again was worth the price. Phillips clenched his jaw as the Voyager touched down on the dusty surface of Earth, the ancient human homeworld lost to time. The crew disembarked and made their way through the crumbling ruins of New York City, following the incomplete records Tyro had provided. "Sir, I'm picking up an energy signature beneath the surface," Lieutenant Chen reported, consulting his scanner. "It's faint, but it matches the frequency described in the files." Phillips nodded, his heart pounding with anticipation and trepidation. They approached the coordinates and discovered a hidden entrance, overgrown with vegetation. As they drew closer, a series of turrets emerged from the ground, humming with power. "Identify yourselves," a mechanical voice demanded. "You are trespassing on restricted property." Phillips stepped forward, holding up his hands. "I am Commander Gerald Phillips of the Galactic Defense Force. We have been authorized by the Galactic Council to retrieve the warbeasts held within this facility." There was a tense moment of silence before the AI responded. "Identity confirmed. I am Guardian, the custodian of this facility, known as the Ark. You may enter, but be warned. The warbeasts are not to be trifled with." The crew cautiously entered the underground complex, marveling at the advanced technology that had survived the centuries. Guardian led them to a vast chamber where 3 massive stasis pods stood, each containing a slumbering warbeast.
"Behemoth, Leviathan, and Titan," Guardian explained, gesturing to each pod in turn. "Created during the ancient human-Tholian war as a last resort against the technologically superior Tholians. Each stands over 100 meters tall and possesses unique abilities. Behemoth has an impenetrable hide and immense strength. Leviathan can fly and breathe fire, and Titan has advanced regenerative abilities and can shoot energy beams from its eyes."
Phillips stared up at the warbeasts in awe and horror. Why were they hidden away? The warbeasts turned the tide of the war, but their immense power also led to widespread destruction and loss of life on both sides, Guardian replied. After the war, they were placed in stasis and hidden to prevent their misuse. As Phillips and his crew began the process of awakening the warbeasts, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. A group of Tholian commandos burst into the chamber, led by none other than Zorthax himself. "Did you really think you could keep this a secret from me?" Zorthax sneered, his insectoid features twisting with malice. "I've been tracking your ship since you left the council chambers. The warbeasts will be mine." Phillips and his crew quickly took cover as the Tholians opened fire, the chamber erupting into chaos. They returned fire, desperately trying to protect the vulnerable warbeasts still trapped in their stasis pods. Phillips knew that if Zorthax got his hands on these ancient weapons, the galaxy would be doomed. Plasma bolts and shrapnel flew through the air as Phillips dove behind a heavy metal crate. Zorthax's Tholian commandos had the Ark locked down, pouring heavy fire towards the still-closed stasis pods holding the warbeasts. Phillips blind-fired his rifle over the top, hoping to buy a few more seconds. "Behemoth's pod is opening," Zikthar yelled out over the din of battle. Phillips risked a glance and saw the first pod hiss and begin to slide apart. The Tholians noticed too and swung their guns to aim at the waking Titan. Phillips took his chance. He vaulted the crate and sprinted along the side of the chamber, flanking the distracted commandos. A few spotted him and sent plasma shots streaking by, but he kept moving until he had a clear angle on their flank. Phillips skidded to a stop and raised his rifle in one smooth motion, placing 3 shots center mass on the nearest commando. The Tholian crumpled, ichor splashing the ground. A deafening roar shook the chamber, commanding the attention of every soldier. Behemoth, the bear-like warbeast, rose to its full 100-meter height, its metallic hide glinting under the plasma flashes. The Tholians blasted away at the shaggy mountain of armored muscle, but their bolts ricocheted off harmlessly. Behemoth swiped a building-sized paw and sent a dozen commandos flying like toy soldiers. Zorthax's troops fell back, continuing to fire but clearly outmatched. Behemoth pursued, shrugging off the Tholians' heaviest ordnance. It crushed their energy shields and soldiers underfoot with each ground-shaking step. The warbeasts swatted hover tanks out of the air, turning the Tholians' own weapons against them in a hail of shrapnel and flames. "Zorthax is calling a retreat," Johnson shouted from his position, monitoring the enemy comms. "Press the attack," Phillips ordered, sweeping his rifle to take down 2 more commandos. "We can't give them a chance to regroup." Zorthax's soldiers broke and ran as Behemoth tore through their crumbling lines. The warbeast bellowed in triumph, a sound that rattled Phillips's bones even from a distance. Behemoth gave chase, smashing through the Ark's walls in pursuit of the fleeing Tholians. "Commander, Leviathan and Titan are waking up," Zikthar reported. "Guardian has their pods synced with us." Phillips felt a sudden rush, like a flood of new sensations pouring into his mind. He could feel the warbeasts, not just see them, but feel their power and presence, as if they were part of him. He felt Leviathan's wings unfurl, his own shoulders twitching in sympathy. Titan's heavy footsteps reverberated through his legs. It was disorienting, but also exhilarating. The neural link gave Phillips a sense of connection and control, like the warbeasts were extensions of his own body, awaiting his command. He shook himself, forcing his mind to adjust to the new sensations. They couldn't afford any delays. "Leviathan Titan on me," Phillips thought, and felt an immediate response from the 2 warbeasts. "Zorthax is regrouping beyond the city. We need to hit him before he can fortify." The warbeasts lumbered out of the Ark, Behemoth taking point and Phillips and his team following close behind. They emerged into the ruins of New York City, ancient skyscrapers crumbling under centuries of neglect. In the distance, Zorthax's forces had gathered, setting up plasma cannons and energy barriers in a desperate attempt to hold the line. Leviathan spread his wings and took off with a crack of thunder, rising above the shattered city. Titan and Behemoth charged forward, shrugging off the sudden hail of plasma fire from the Tholian defenders. Phillips watched in awe as Leviathan rained blue fire onto the Tholian positions, turning their fortifications into molten slag. Titan's eye-beams lanced out, vaporizing entire squads with each blast. Behemoth reached the Tholian perimeter and bulled through it without slowing, crushing soldiers and vehicles alike beneath its bulk. The Tholians fought back with the desperate ferocity of a cornered animal. Plasma artillery pounded the warbeasts, and Zorthax's soldiers clung to any cover they could find, refusing to retreat. Behemoth roared as a heavy cannon shot glanced off its shoulder, leaving a glowing crater in its armored hide. Phillips felt a ghost of the beast's pain through the neural link. The streets of New York had become a meat grinder, a storm of plasma and falling debris. Leviathan swooped and dove through the mayhem, clawing Tholian aircraft out of the sky. Titan charged from block to block, its armored bulk shrugging off the hail of plasma shots, and Behemoth was everywhere, smashing through buildings and vehicles as if they were made of paper. But for every Tholian position they destroyed, it seemed like two more rose up to take its place. Zorthax's forces were dug in deep, and they clearly intended to fight to the last. As the battle stretched from minutes into hours and the city burned around them, Philip started to wonder if even the legendary Warbeasts would be enough to break the Tholian lines. Phillips hacked and slashed his way through the Tholian lines, carving a path of destruction towards Zorthax's command post in the heart of Central Park. The once lush greenery was now a blasted hellscape, pocked with craters and littered with the broken bodies of Tholian soldiers. Zorthax stood atop a mound of rubble, his plasma sword glowing with an eerie red light. Phillips charged forward, his own blade humming with power. The two commanders clashed in a flurry of sparks and scorched metal, their weapons moving faster than the eye could follow. Phillips pressed the attack, driving Zorthax back with a relentless barrage of strikes. The Tholian commander parried and dodged, his insectoid reflexes barely keeping him ahead of Phillips's blade. But Phillips could feel the tide turning in his favor. He was younger, stronger, and driven by a righteous fury that Zorthax couldn't match. Just as Phillips was about to deliver the killing blow, Zorthax reached into his armor and pulled out a small glowing device. Phillips felt a sudden, wrenching pain in his head, like a spike being driven through his skull. His neural link with the Warbeasts shattered, and he staggered back, clutching his temples. In the distance, Behemoth, Leviathan, and Titan roared in confusion and pain. Freed from Phillips's control, they began to rampage aimlessly, smashing through friend and foe alike. Tholian soldiers and Phillips's own crew were crushed beneath their flailing limbs and trampled under their massive feet. Phillips watched in horror as the Warbeasts tore through the battlefield, undoing everything he had fought for. He knew he had only one chance to stop them before they destroyed everything. He opened a comm channel to the Voyager, his voice ragged with pain and exhaustion. "Johnson, get the crew out of here, back to the ship now." "But sir, what about you?" Johnson asked, his voice thick with concern. "I'm staying. I have to stop the Warbeasts before they level the whole damn city." "Sir, you can't. It's suicide." "That's an order, Lieutenant. Now go before it's too late." Phillips cut the channel before Johnson could argue further. He turned to face the rampaging Warbeasts, his jaw set with determination. He had spent hours connected to their minds, learning their strengths and weaknesses. He knew what he had to do. Phillips sprinted towards Behemoth, ducking and weaving through the debris. The massive creature swung its head towards him, its eyes glowing with mindless rage. Phillips dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding a swipe of its paw that would have taken his head off. He rolled to his feet and grabbed a handful of rubble, hurling it into Behemoth's face. The beast roared in annoyance, pawing at its eyes. Phillips took advantage of the distraction to dart in close, jabbing his plasma sword into the gap between Behemoth's armored plates. The creature howled in pain and stumbled back, giving Phillips just enough time to climb up its flank and onto its back. Phillips clung to Behemoth's shaggy hide as the beast bucked and thrashed beneath him. He inched his way towards the base of its skull, where he knew a cluster of vital nerves lay hidden beneath the armor. With a shout of effort, Phillips plunged his sword into the weak point, sending a surge of burning plasma into Behemoth's brain. The Warbeast shuddered and collapsed, its massive body crashing to the ground in a cloud of dust and debris. Phillips rolled clear, his armor scored and blackened, but his body still intact. One down, two to go. Phillips lay in the Voyager's medical bay, his broken body slowly knitting itself back together. Every breath sent spikes of pain through his chest, and his head throbbed with a dull ache. But even through the haze of painkillers, his mind raced with the implications of what he had done. The door to the medical bay slid open, and Tyro strode in, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights. "Commander Phillips, the Council has convened an emergency session," the Tholian said, his voice buzzing through his translator implant. "Your presence is requested." Philip struggled to sit up, ignoring the protests of his body. "I'll be there," he grunted. The council chamber was a cavernous room, its walls lined with the flags of 100 different species. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in tiered rows, their faces a mix of anger, fear, and confusion. As Phillips limped to the center of the room, the murmurs of conversation died away. He could feel the weight of 1,000 stares pressing down on him. "Commander Phillips," the council leader began, her voice ringing out across the chamber, "the council has grave concerns about the actions of you and your crew. The Warbeasts were a weapon of unimaginable destructive power. In unleashing them, you may have doomed us all." Phillips opened his mouth to respond, but another council member cut him off. "The humans have shown their true colors," the alien spat, his tentacles writhing with agitation. "They are a violent, unpredictable species. They cannot be trusted with a place in this council." Shouts of agreement echoed through the chamber. Phillips felt a cold knot of dread settle in his stomach. Tyro's voice cut through the tumult. "If I may, councillors," the Tholian said, his tone calm and measured, "Commander Phillips and his crew acted with great bravery and sacrifice. They risked their lives to save countless billions. We should not be so quick to condemn them." A few voices murmured in agreement, but the majority of the council still looked unconvinced. Phillips knew he had to act fast. He stepped forward, his voice raw with emotion. "Councillors, I know the Warbeasts were a terrible weapon, but they were a product of a different time, a time when humanity was fighting for its very survival. We have evolved beyond that. The sacrifices my crew made, the sacrifices I made, were proof of that. We fought to protect the galaxy, not to destroy it." Phillips could see some of the councillors nodding, their expressions softening. He pressed on, pouring every ounce of conviction he had into his words. "Humanity is ready to take its place among the stars. We are ready to be guardians, not destroyers. I ask only that you give us that chance." For a long moment the chamber was silent. Then slowly a few of the councillors began to clap. More joined in until the room was filled with the sound of applause. Phillips felt a surge of relief wash over him. They had done it. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy. And then Zikthar stepped forward. The Tholian science officer had been a quiet presence on the Voyager, always keeping to himself. But now, as he moved to the center of the chamber, his posture was confident, almost smug. "Councillors," Zikthar began, his voice dripping with false sincerity, "I have a confession to make. For the past several years, I have been working as an agent for Zorthax." The chamber erupted into chaos. Councillors leapt to their feet, shouting accusations and demands for explanations. Phillips felt like he had been punched in the gut. Zikthar, a traitor. It couldn't be. But the Tholian continued, his voice cutting through the noise. "The Warbeast mission was a trick from the very beginning. Zorthax planted the records that led us to the Ark. He wanted to see what humanity was capable of, to gauge our strength." Zikthar turned to Phillips, his compound eyes glittering with malice. "And thanks to you, Commander, he has learned everything he needs to know." The councillors were in an uproar now, shouting over each other in a dozen different languages. But all Phillips could hear was the pounding of his own heart. Zikthar raised his voice to be heard over the tumult. "Oh, and one more thing. Zorthax is very much alive. His death was staged, a ruse to throw you off his scent. Even now, he is planning his next move against this council, armed with the knowledge he gained from the Warbeasts." The chamber descended into bedlam. Accusations flew like bullets, old alliances shattering under the weight of suspicion and fear. Phillips watched it all with a growing sense of horror. Everything they had fought for, all the sacrifices they had made, had been for nothing. Zorthax had outplayed them from the very beginning. As the council argued and bickered, Phillips slipped away, his mind reeling. He stumbled to the nearest viewport, staring out at the vast expanse of space. Somewhere out there, Zorthax was plotting his next move. The fragile peace the council had worked so hard to build was crumbling, and the trust between humanity and the other races had been shattered. Phillips clenched his jaw, his eyes hardening with resolve. He knew what he had to do. Zorthax had to be stopped no matter the cost. He and his crew would hunt the warlord down and bring him to justice, even if it meant sacrificing everything they held dear. As the stars twinkled in the endless void, Phillips felt the weight of the galaxy settle on his shoulders. The road ahead would be long and hard, filled with danger and uncertainty, but he would not rest until the job was done. Humanity's place in the stars depended on it. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.